Lies of P is so damn good, it kept me engaged for over 50 hours. It's so faithful to that Souls-like formula to the point where it almost felt like I was playing a FromSoft game. With the immaculate level design that looped back on itself by way of shortcuts, the way it reveals the lore to you through items and collectibles, the way it has traps laid out for the player that genuinely caught me off guard. Whoa, 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 whoa. It's got weird and creative enemy design, weird, creative, and challenging bosses. It ticks all the boxes that I'm looking for out of a Souls-like while also carving out its own identity. Now, based off the title of this video, maybe you thought I was being hyperbolic, but the truth is, I genuinely believe that Lies of P is better than Dark Souls. Or perhaps, I'm lying. Honestly though, I truly am not lying. Unless you think I am. However, I have had a lot of difficulty being taken seriously lately.
Yo, you're a big no.
And for some reason, I can't seem to stop lying.
Huh? You big liar?
Well, no. I got a YouTube channel, you've probably heard of it. It's called The Act Man.
The what?
My channel's called The Act Man.
The Act Man?
Yeah.
No, I haven't.
I do like video game reviews, and then I also do like 9/11 conspiracy theories stuff.
Do you?
Yeah. It's just look me up, I'm the Act Man. I just want to be taken seriously again, you know? Like a real boy, so that I can finally get rid of this embarrassing nose. Now let me be clear, right? I have nothing but love and respect for FromSoft and the Dark Souls series as a whole. I've spent hours completing each and every one of those games. I look back on them with warm memories of fondness and frustration. So I don't know if Lies of P is actually better than Dark Souls, but it's certainly incredibly close. I think we're gonna find out together over the course of this video. But Lies of P has got me completely rethinking Dark Souls as a whole, and it's even given me a new perspective on the Souls-like formula. The first thing you'll notice about Lies of P is that it looks great, like a Displate. Today's sponsor. Displate and Datplate are metal plates that are actually posters that allow you to commemorate the games you love, like Starfield. Everybody's favorite. This bad boy is sturdy too. It's not gonna crinkle like a paper poster or crumble under pressure like a Reddit poster. Displate has over 1 million designs on their website, so you have a lot to choose from. And I only chose properties that I truly loved, like Far Cry 6 and World of Warships. The quality of the posters and the art on the posters is pretty good, and you don't need to drill holes in your walls to hang them up. Instead, you wipe the wall like a bottom, stick a protective leaf in the middle, plop a magnet over top, and mount a Displate on there. It looks great next to this picture of my dog that was taken right after his trip to outer space. If you use my link to nab yourself a Displate, it'll only take 4 to 5 business days to show up at your door. Displate also makes for a pretty solid present for your friends or families, and they've probably got something on their roster that is likely that your friends and family will like. So make sure to act fast to get the best promo and be sure that the design will be delivered on time. If you use the link in the description, the discount will be applied automatically when you go to checkout, or use my code to get 22% off for 1 to 2 Displates or 33% off if you order more than 3 Displates. Alright, now let's get back to the video. One of the areas where Lies of P shines brighter than Dark Souls is atmosphere. Because Lies of P has something that Dark Souls doesn't. Music.
Je t'ai rencontré simplement et tu n'as rien fait pour chercher à me plaire. Je t'aime pourtant.
There's also records you can collect out in the world by purchasing them from a merchant or for completing side quests. You can then play those records in the Krat Hotel, which serves as the game's hub. And when I heard this song, I could just feel it in my bones that this game was going to be special. And it was. You see, they really didn't need to add all these songs into the game, which makes all of them feel like an extra special little treat. And you actually get rewarded for listening to them all the way through by gaining more humanity. There are dead bodies on the streets, which help convey the illusion that this town has been overrun by glitched out puppets. They play with lighting effects to make the puppets seem intimidating and give them presence. The ambient noise fills up the environments with life and makes them feel real. Whether it's water dripping from the ceiling, strong winds and waves, or the creaky old industrial machinery of an abandoned factory. The Estella Opera House is my personal favorite location in the game. It looks so ornate and pleasant, but it also has this ominous feel to it, which is perfectly conveyed by the music. And yeah, Dark Souls has a tremendous atmosphere as well. I'd say Lies of P and Dark Souls are pretty much tied here actually. I do think that Lies of P is able to convey more emotion because it has more variation in its music. And a lot of the time Dark Souls can feel really dour. The music is really sad and a lot of the characters just sound miserable.
Thine sorceries are more straightforward, negating all but thyself.
Master Logan is a great sorcerer and my teacher.
But I think Lies of P slightly edges it out for me purely because I prefer its tone more.
Ah, I heard you defeated the King of Puppets. Amazing.
Dark Souls has a hopelessness to it, whereas Lies of P has a hopefulness to it, as we're trying to save the city of Krat from complete destruction, rather than trying to piece together a world that's already been destroyed. I loved exploring the world of Krat. They hid a bunch of items and treasure chests all over the place, so you're almost always rewarded for veering off the beaten path to check everything out, especially because they hide some really important items all over the place. Lies of P also likes to throw tons of surprises at you. What the oh my... So while exploring new areas, I was constantly on my toes. It felt like anything could happen. I didn't know if something was going to pop out at me, and every item I thought about picking up held the potential of being some kind of trap. I approached every corner with caution. The developers are pranking you all the damn time in this game. Like, they put this item right here in front of you, knowing full well that the player gets forced into walking slower during the pickup animation, meaning that when you go to pick up this relatively worthless item, I knew it, you're gonna get hit. Or they'll put the bear from Annihilation right next to a chest. What the oh my god, okay. Oh, wow. I love this type of thing because I never really knew what to expect. I never felt safe. I was constantly checking my back. I was genuinely afraid to pick up certain items because I was worried that it could be a trap, and that kept me engaged every time I got to a new area. In hopes of turning back into a real boy, I thought I'd bring you guys over here to the Olive Garden to eat some real food. So I guess now we're all technically family. Lies of P has my absolute favorite combat mechanic in any Souls-like, the perfect parry. So satisfying. You can also perfect parry literally every attack in the game if you're good enough. And you're rewarded even further if you continuously perfect parry an enemy's attacks, as that will eventually cause their weapon to break. Oh baby! You can even break boss weapons with perfect parries, which weakens their attack output and makes them easier to deal with. It's awesome! The perfect parry felt so damn good in Lies of P that I went all in with the perfect parry playstyle. I almost never use my dodge because of it, and I got pretty good at learning the boss's movesets as a result. I was also constantly switching up the weapons I would use, which kept things feeling fresh. When I had to fight puppets, I'd use my electric coil, which would stun lock them and make them trivial. When I got to these zombie people, I used a dagger that set them on fire, and its quick strikes would stun lock them and make them trivial. Then I started using this katana for a while, but it turned out that that wasn't doing me any favors during this boss fight with the Walker of Illusions here. So I swapped over to my comically large axe that is made out of the carcasses of dead puppets, and I was able to kill her on my first try. No! Oh my god! Well, I almost killed her on my first try. But the point remains that all throughout my playthrough, I was constantly switching weapons and experimenting with different playstyles. Whereas in Dark Souls 1, I got lucky, and at the beginning of my first playthrough, the Black Knight's halberd dropped, and that thing carried me through most of the game. I have very little memory of Dark Souls 2, and I'd kind of like to keep it that way, and in Dark Souls 3, I went through that entire game using just the broadsword. the starting weapon. And sure, I had every opportunity in the world to switch things up and try different weapons, but I never felt that I needed to, because whatever I had on me was working just fine. I think that this is due in part to the fact that a lot of the weapons in Dark Souls are level locked, so you can't use them until your strength or dexterity is high enough, which does make a lot of sense. But it doesn't make a lot of fun. What that does is it de-incentivizes experimentation, whereas Lies of P allows you to equip any weapon at any point so that you can get a feel for it, which encourages experimentation. Additionally, there's so many upgrade materials hidden all over the place, and they're so cheap to buy that you can upgrade your weapons with relative ease. So there's so much incentive to just try new stuff out. And then if you don't like how a weapon feels, you can completely change its moveset by using the weapon assembly feature. Like, I really liked my puppet carcass axe, but the swing animation was too slow. So I removed the axe from its handle and attached it to a smaller handle, and now I can swing it quicker and still do big damage. How cool is that? There are dozens of variations that you can do with different weapons and handles. And then you got so much variety with the weapons too. You got swords, axes, batons, a scythe, dagger, spears, a giant drill, Thor's hammer, a giant turkey leg, and this circle thing.
Whoa. These breadsticks are hard. This could have been a weapon in Lies of P.
Combat with regular enemy types did leave a lot to be desired, though. I felt that they were pretty easy to take care of since you can just stun lock them, but whatever it was lacking with combat was made up for in its environmental design and enemy placement. Like the inside of this clock tower, for example, where you need to precariously cross these little beams and time your clunky jumps through gaps in the gears, all while enemies are climbing up around you and BBWs, or big blue women, are throwing acid globs at you. One wrong move, and you're done for. Or this junkyard section, which has a cannon shooting cannonballs at you. While there are 2 giant bosses to fight, on top of tons of regular puppets that are littered all over the place. So you got a couple of different options here. You can immediately rush the cannon and destroy it, or you can use the cannon by baiting it to shoot the bosses and do big damage. This was exciting. I felt constant pressure as I dodged cannonballs, took swings at the boss when I could, all while trying not to aggro the puppets laying around. Really fun segment. I felt like this game was always giving me something new to worry about with each new area. And it was so stressful in the best way possible. I needed to chug my vintage 1996 red Kool-Aid to keep my nerves calm.
Ooh, that's a strong Kool-Aid, Mama.
Mini-bosses are awesome, and there are a ton of them littered throughout the game, which serve to shake things up in between tearing through standard enemy types and getting pranked by the environment. The way they're introduced to the player can be pretty startling, too. A lot of these fights got my blood pumping as they had 4 or 5 movesets that I had to memorize, along with a good chunk of health. So you need to learn their attack animations and figure out the best times to strike. After hitting them enough times and pulling off a few perfect parries, which also happens to drain their posture, forcing their health bar to turn white. So now, if you hit them with a super slow charged attack while their health bar is white, they'll be staggered, which will allow you to do a bunch of damage for free. Then as they're getting up from that attack, they're vulnerable, so you can use your Fable Arts to deal even more damage to them. So Fable Arts are those blue bars up there. You can fill them up by dealing damage, taking damage, and perfect parries. Every weapon has its own unique Fable attack animation, giving even more individuality to each separate weapon. The scythe gets whipped around like a chain, you can call down lightning with Thor's hammer, the katana shoots a long-range blue projectile out of it. They're all pretty cool, and it just feels so badass to use them. The animations for the Fable attacks can take a little while to get going though, so if you get hit, it'll cancel you out of that animation and you'll lose your Fable juice, so you need to be thoughtful about when you use it. Defeating a mini-boss felt pretty substantial because I really had to focus and use everything that was at my disposal. Sit down, Pinocchio. The animation team did such a great job of telegraphing the enemy attacks as well, not just with the mini-bosses, but across the entire game, giving Lies of P the most easily readable enemy attack animations in the entire Souls-like genre. And this made learning each enemy so intuitive, which also mitigated any additional frustrations. There was a lot of variety with the mini-bosses as well, from tall puppets to a Danny DeVito puppet to multiple full-blown monsters and even regular humans. But I didn't think the human mini-bosses were very fun to fight. I felt that they were actually too easy. There wasn't really much they could do to me because I would just get behind them and lock them into a back attack animation. They also had a limited move set and didn't seem to do very much damage. Pretty lackluster, honestly. And if you do struggle with a mini-boss, most of them are optional, so you can just skip past them if you want to, but killing them nets you some very valuable rewards like better defensive gear or quartz to upgrade your P organ. The progression system is spectacular. You use Ergo, which is this game's version of Souls, to upgrade your health, stamina, and damage output like you would in any other Souls-like. But then you also get Quartz, which unlocks additional skills and abilities in the P organ. And speaking of P organ, you guys remember how I was drinking all that wine earlier? Well, now I need to pee.
Lies of P.
Every unlock on here is meaningful. So let's say I want to be able to equip another amulet, which is the equivalent of a ring in Dark Souls. Pretty big upgrade. But in order to do that, I gotta unlock 3 small perks with the quartz, like better weapon durability, or an ability that lets me regain health when I pull off a perfect parry, and another one that makes all item prices reduced across all merchants. So not only do I get all 3 of those perks, but I also now get to equip a 5th amulet. So I'm constantly buzzing with dopamine whenever I go to upgrade my character. And what I like about the P organ system is that these are abilities that I genuinely look forward to unlocking, which is so rare in video games now. And having a good progression system means that finding items that help you progress feels genuinely good. Ooh, quartz! I also like how the parts that act as armor against enemy attacks and resistance to ailments like decay or break don't change the appearance of your character. You equip that armor beneath Pinocchio's clothes, and the cosmetics are equipped on a separate menu, meaning you can have your character look however you want him to look, regardless of whatever armor you have equipped, unlike in Dark Souls. So the standard enemies are like the salad you get as an appetizer that you just chew through. The hard breadsticks that want to destroy your gut are like the environmental hazards that are out to get you. The waiter that you need to interact with in order to get your food is emblematic of the mini-bosses which gatekeep your progress. And the boss battles are like the main course meal, which are far more flavorful and substantial than Olive Garden's fettuccine alfredo with grilled chicken. Each boss battle almost felt like its own little puzzle that needed to be solved, and they all required a ton of practice and learning to properly defeat them. Laxasia had a heavy emphasis on parrying, especially in her second phase where she would shoot lightning bolts at you which you could reflect back to her with a perfect parry. Now how cool is that? Learning the timing of stuff like this is so rewarding. The Black Rabbit fight required you to juggle multiple enemies at once, which is usually a nightmare in these types of games, but they managed to make this fight work because while fighting a secondary enemy, the main boss would telegraph that he was about to come attack you with a scream. So you were never blindsided. The Door Guardian was slow and would inflict a status effect on you that made your stamina recover much more slowly, essentially bringing you to his level. And the only way to do any real damage to him is to stagger him. So yeah, that stagger mechanic translates over to bosses, and I think that adds additional depth to the boss fights because you need to be familiar enough with their movesets to know when you can get away with landing a charged attack on them without being punished. But that opportunity is on such a short timer, so there's a lot of pressure on you to perform the move as quickly as possible. There's also another mechanic that comes into play during boss battles. This one's my favorite. If you run out of pulse cells, the fight isn't over yet, because if you land enough hits on the boss, you can fill this meter up, which will give you another additional heal. And then when you use that heal, you can fill the meter up again, but filling it up a second time is going to require you to land more hits than the first time to unlock it. I think this is a genius mechanic because if you're good at the game, you get extra health, which gives you hope when things start to feel hopeless. And that'll at the very least allow you to stay in the fight longer so that you can get some more practice in. This came in absolutely clutch during a few boss battles where it literally came down to the wire. Each victory came with a massive sense of relief and accomplishment, which I haven't felt from a video game in a long time. Come on. Yes. Jesus, yeah, okay. Again, I feel like Lies of P is pretty much right on par with Dark Souls here. It doesn't have quite as many bosses as a Dark Souls game, but this is definitely more of a quality over quantity situation. Because Dark Souls has some gimmicky stinkers, like the Bed of Chaos, the Lady in the Infinite Hallway, and almost every boss in Dark Souls 2. None of the bosses in Lies of P feel like dead weight. They all feel like they've had a ton of thought and care put into them. And I was more than willing to sit there for 1 to 2 hours straight in order to fully learn the boss and defeat it. Whereas in Dark Souls, that wasn't always the case for me. Because Dark Souls wasn't strictly linear like Lies of P, which some of you might view as a flaw, but for me that's a positive. Due to the game's linearity, I always knew that I was exactly where I needed to be. Whereas in Dark Souls, I wasn't always certain if I was supposed to be fighting a particular boss sometimes. And in those situations, I was tempted to just leave and go to a different area and come back here later. That uncertainty made it difficult for me to fully commit to some boss fights, and as a result, I would kinda drag my feet sometimes. But I do think that Lies of P has additional depth with the ability to recharge your pulse cell and to stagger bosses in the middle of a fight. And the presentation of these fights is definitely on par with Dark Souls. The Archbishop rips its chest open to reveal a man inside of it. The hand of God reaches down from the heavens and touches Simon Manus, imbuing him with the power of a god. Then that god hand becomes a hazard during the fight, creating an explosion in the arena that you need to avoid. This battle just felt so climactic and memorable. This whole game was just so damn awesome from start to finish. This game never once felt unfair to me. It is designed so remarkably well through and through. Mechanically speaking, there's no dead weight. The Legion arms, the Fable arts, the perfect parry, and the staggering all synergize really well with one another. There's no annoying, gimmicky areas like Blighttown or the Pit. All of the content in the game has been carefully curated to be as good as possible. Everything here is of high quality and serves a purpose. As a result, the game feels so focused and it doesn't overstay its welcome, like Dark Souls 2 did. I like how the story is delivered in a more traditional way. It allowed me to understand fully what the stakes were and what was going on. But they still elaborated on that lore more by allowing you to read item descriptions, so you get the best of both worlds here. And I know I'm in the minority with this, but I've never really cared for the way Dark Souls delivers its story by expecting you to read item descriptions. I really don't want to stop playing the game to read stuff. And I don't want to go watch a YouTube video either. I want to see it all unfold in front of me. There are some excellent quality of life features in here too. Like, I never knew how to complete side quests in Dark Souls. I always had to look those up online. But Lies of P clues you in on how to progress certain side quests or even where to turn them in whenever you're navigating in the bonfire or the Stargazer menu. I also found it interesting how a lot of the time lying was actually good.
Is there any resemblance between me and that portrait? It seems Geppetto even taught you good manners.
Like, it usually felt like the right thing to do in most cases because it made these people feel better during their final moments of life. It made me think that maybe I should start lying more in real life. I mean, how else am I gonna get free Italian donuts?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Ron. Happy birthday to you. Thank you. Happy birthday, okay? Enjoy the
Best birthday ever.
And it's clear that the developers are passionate about this game too. Recently, they put out a YouTube video on their channel where the game director himself thanked the fans for surpassing 1 million sales. He acknowledged criticisms that the game received, and then he shared how they planned on fixing those issues that received criticism. He expressed that they're trying to give the fans what they want by way of adding customization features like being able to wear glasses and a hat at the same time. It's a very simple feature, but it's also a feature that a AAA game would most likely charge us $10 for. But Lies of P does it for free, and they announced that they're working on a DLC and a sequel. This type of transparency is unparalleled in today's industry, and I can't help but have nothing but respect and admiration for the entire studio. This game harkens back to the times when game studios were creating the best games they possibly could, rather than simply completing games to make money with the intention of fixing them later. And that alone should be enough to make anybody want to buy this game. So for me personally, I like Lies of P more than Dark Souls.
You probably just believed all that now, didn't ya? How could somebody say something so preposterous? Am I right?
I don't really think that Lies of P is better. I think that it's just as good as Dark Souls.
And so does he.
Because nothing is better than Dark Souls. It's the peak of gaming, and we all know it. But it's no longer alone on that peak anymore, because Lies of P is sitting right up there with it. Alright, now I can finally take this nose off. And this thing smells too. But I genuinely do believe that Lies of P and Dark Souls are tied. Honest. I gotta give a big thanks to the Patreons, because, without them, videos like this wouldn't be possible. I use the money I get from there to pay for my editing software and buy big dumb costumes. Every dollar I get from there goes right back into the channel. And I also want to thank Olive Garden for being gullible. That's all I got for this one, folks. I'll see you in a week and a half. Bye-bye.
Liar, liar.